Among the channels I have, I often talk about the misuse of solutions, and the most common one is Excel, or more in general, spreadsheets, but there are also others. Sometimes I mention databases, and in this video you will see a very particular case that involves abusing your own website. Most people abuse Excel because they're familiar with Excel. I want to remind you, is a spreadsheet or calculation sheet, and this channel deals with data in many ways. So I often see that people use Excel or spreadsheets as databases, and that becomes a problem for data retrieval purposes, as many of you already know, and not only. You could use also Excel to make statistical analysis. That is another big topic of my content, and that, in my opinion, is another way to abuse spreadsheets. For example, Excel has many plugins that allow us to do so, but my suggestion is to use the code. And well, recently Microsoft decided to include Python inside Excel, and as I said in another occasion, what could go wrong? So in this video you will see a way where you could abuse your website. I suppose that most likely if you see this video you have a website for your enterprise company or freelancer activity, call it as you want, and you have this site hosted inside someone else's server. Most likely, since it is also the most common one, you use WordPress as a technology behind your website, as also I do for my two websites, even though I also have static web pages. That is another topic. And you know that in WordPress you can have plugins. So we have to specify, as I did with Excel, what is a website for. Generally it is a way to expose what you do on the internet. In another word, a display window. You can display stuff with a simple landing page. You can also, like me, have a home, a blog, and then links that brings to YouTube that display in a more visual way what you do, but that is the purpose of a website. Besides displaying, most likely you have a contact form, and then things can become tricky, because as Excel allows you to integrate code, macros, store data and so on, you could start to think I could install a plugin for something more. Like, for example, an ERP, that means Enterprise Resource Planning. That basically means an extra database on your website for data, for human resources, clients and potential clients, accounting, and management. I don't know if you know, but WordPress is already heavy in terms of server resources. And if you install plugins like this one, you make it even heavier. Then there is also a problem that who comes from an engineering understands more. It is the separation of responsibilities. I already mentioned it with Excel. On Excel you do some basic calculations. It isn't a database. For websites you display what you offer. If you also integrate other stuff, things become bloated, more difficult to maintain. So my suggestion is to never install something like this inside your website, your main website. You could have a second website where you just do these back-end business operations, if you want to call them like that. But even better, use a third-party supplier. For example, for the CRM, you can use Mautic, that is open source. You can use HubSpot, that is free till a point and then you have to pay, and it is quite expensive. For accounting, you can use QuickBooks. Separation of responsibilities, one thing that do one thing. Don't make a complex system that rely on just one infrastructure And if it happens that the infrastructure goes down for one reason or another, it becomes a very big problem for the company. For example, for the HR management, consider spreadsheets. It is difficult to make them become databases because the number of rows are limited. Online spreadsheet also, not files, please. For the payroll, for startups, I still use the spreadsheets. You could use Jet HR or many others. I don't know actually the pricing, but I'm giving you some ideas. For the contact form, it is okay, the default solution that WordPress provides. I don't remember the name, but in some cases they install it by default. For the accounting, again, I generally suggest QuickBooks. You could say I'm a newborn company, I can't afford it. Spreadsheets, or you can use Conto with the Q, that is a more complex solution, or you can use the invoice services of your country. For Italy, for example, I know Aruba, but also Team System that allows something like that. I hope you found the lesson useful on the separation of responsibility, and if you want to understand more precisely which isolated tool to use in your case, you can contact me at the contact page you see in the video in the description. Bye, and see you the next time.